horror movie that just so happens to be dressed in the veneer of a sports movie? Sounds like an interesting idea. At the very least, it's original. This isn't something like The Faculty where the sport is just a subplot of the main story. Here, the sport is front and center, which is very unique. The GOAT, my mistake, Him, which is the title that they had to go with since Sony beat them to it. And it definitely explains why they reference the GOAT so much in this movie, because no, it's not just a typical sports term. First and foremost, this is not a Jordan Peele directed film. Him was directed by Justin Tipping that was simply funded by Peele's Monkey Paw Productions. And that has to be mentioned because a lot of folks are going to think this movie was directed by Jordan Peele, and the movie does a good job of disguising itself in the look of a Peele movie. Like I said before, this is an original idea, and I'd be damned if this didn't look exactly like the kind of movie that Peele would try and make. Exploring these broad community-based themes, horror visuals that are weird yet interesting, it's the kind of stuff that you definitely would see in a Peele movie. Unfortunately, this movie is everything that people criticize about Jordan Peele's actual films, where they say the movie thinks it's smarter than it actually is, or it's too much style and not enough substance, or it gets lost in its own message and it feels too convoluted and it doesn't make all that much sense. No, his films have so much going on, but never overinflated. There's plenty of nuance and timely commentary that's not just discussed on a surface level plane. The irony of this is that the people that hate on Peele's films are gonna love this and boast, wow, how brave was this movie to touch on this heavy subject matter and shed light on something as dark as this. Cameron Cade is at the height of his potential and is ready to go on to the league with constant talk about how he might have what it takes to be the next GOAT. After a freak accident, he's given the chance to train and of course in the middle of nowhere with his childhood hero Isaiah White to see if he really has what it takes to be the next best and dethrone White. My biggest issue with the movie is because of how much hope I had that a premise as unique and original as this one would be great. This year alone we've had some doozies, which is expected. Every year there's some good, there's some bad, but as original films go, we had Sinners, Weapons, Companion, Opus. Okay, maybe not that one. The point is, I had hopes that this was gonna be good. I'm a big Jordan Peele fan, and just seeing his name in the trailers was enough to get me hooked. Those sneaky advertising brainiacs got me. There's plenty of stuff in sports that can easily be manipulated and used in horror. Concussions, toxic fan base, obsessive, unhealthy, and unrealistic expectations of oneself and from others. Oh, and this is not for those that have a fear of needles, cause there's plenty of that. It's all stuff that can easily work in horror. But somehow this movie not only fumbled by using up an original idea and not delivering, but it showed the worst of what modern horror can look like because everything it did felt so played out by this point in the genre. Using cults is so tedious and we really need to give it a rest. It's such a downer to me when I see that a movie is gonna involve cults. When your main character is picked to go to a spot in the middle of nowhere, you can bet your life savings that it's gonna involve cults because that is just the trope that we keep using and it's exhausting. It's so strange because the best way I can describe this movie is it's very aggressive filmmaking. It has almost music video vibes and yet the movie tells the plot in such a safe way. I mean, in general, saying this movie has a plot is very generous because there is virtually no story in this movie. There was multiple times throughout this film that reminded me of Opus, and I could tell that wasn't a good sign because the last time I thought about that movie was when I reviewed it, which was like 6 months ago? I'm not saying there can't be cults in movies, but surely you're saying something new and unique that hasn't been done before. We've already heard everything this movie has to say in something like Squid Games or funnily enough Peele's Nope, which is just too unfair to compare that masterpiece with something like this. This movie is like one big shonen training arc, but like the sports version, but that's all this movie is. 95% of this movie's runtime is just throwing you into different edits and sequences that have the thinnest threads of connecting tissue to get you to move to the next scene. This is like the worst version of what a slice of life show can look like because there is no continuity from one scene or day to the next. Things just happen. I found myself so uninterested in what was going on by like the 30-minute mark, so by the time that we got to the climax, I had no interest in the resolution. The themes that are being explored are so shallow and being discussed on a surface level, yet the movie is constantly yelling at you that this is deep and that we're gonna keep digging deeper, but we're not. The true tragedy of this film is that the writing is so awful that it obliterates all the praise that some of the elements of this movie should get. The attention to small details like sweat beads or the texture on skin looks really good. There's a lot of fun sequences with x-rays that, I'm not gonna lie, it looked really cool. It helps you feel the impact of the brutality that much more when you implement that x-ray effect. And it's not like a one and done thing, it's used multiple times throughout the movie and it never feels boring. I mentioned earlier that it's shot in a way that you would shoot a music video, fast editing, pacing, barely any dialogue, and music galore. I can appreciate that it's purposefully there to help you feel as chaotic as Cam's head probably feels, again, leaning into that quarterback pressure coming from a million different directions. And at first I honestly felt like the hyper-fast editing was a flaw of the film, but honestly, because of how little was being said in this movie, it works because at least the movie moves forward. The lead performances are probably the strongest part of the film. The I Know What You Did Last Summer reboot has so many problems, but Tyreek Withers wasn't one of them. If anything, he was just one of the better parts of it. So it didn't shock me that he was quite likable in the film. Marlon Wayans. God, is it good to have you back on the big screen. He's able to maneuver so effortlessly from being the cool professor to the sadistic maniac. We all know him as being the funny guy, and he's hysterical in this film, but his serious acting is as equally impressive. And you can tell even though both these characters ultimately feel like wasted nothing characters, it wasn't the actors' fault. The movie is messy and it gets lost in its own painfully bland message. Things happen for no reason. People die even though, really, what was the purpose of their death? A sacrifice had to be made? Couldn't the crazy fan lady be the sacrifice instead, since she holds no significance to the cult? Some of these characters, I couldn't tell what was the purpose of them being in this story. And also, are you an ally or not? There's also an attempt to use POV shots from within the helmet, and while I can appreciate it, I'm sorry, but after watching Luca Guadagnino's Challengers with the insane tracking shots, I just wasn't impressed by it. And ultimately, there's no clear message by the end, even though the movie's constantly saying how there will be one. The movie kinda ends without an actual resolution. Like, the last few minutes are so weird. It's really underwhelming. Like, that's it? Maybe I'm the wrong audience for it and others might feel vindicated and even empowered by this movie, but I just don't see it. But that's it for me. I'd appreciate a thumbs up, subscribe, and sincerely yours, Anthony.